Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 3. In this session, I wanted to go over a bit more in detail about working on your thesis statement. And there's also, in session 3, if you scroll down your page, there's a document called Writing a Thesis Sentence that you can pull up and look at. And that will be really helpful to you as you think not only about what your thesis is about, but how to actually phrase that and write it and what words to use because all of that plays a very important role in having a really good thesis statement. So I thought today that I would give you some examples on here and some hints about how to develop a really good thesis statement. You guys are working on your thesis statement, or you had worked on your thesis statement last week and turned those in, and I sent those back to you with some different pointers and things. And so I'm just going to continue that here on the video because this is one of the most important things that you will learn this semester is how to write a good thesis statement. If you can write a good thesis statement and focus your essay, then the rest of the essay will come a lot more easily to you than if you have a vague thesis statement that's really not helping you figure out exactly what it is that you're writing about. So when we're developing a thesis statement, there are 3 things that you're going to want to focus on. Subject, what's it about? Attitude, what do you think about it? And direction, where are you going with this idea? And so you can kind of remember this with the acronym SAD. I just made that up, but sometimes I like making things like that up because it helps me be able to remember. I need to write my thesis statement. SAD, what is that? And then I can think of subject, attitude, direction. So hopefully that will help you all remember what you need to be thinking about when you sit down to form a thesis statement for an essay. So again, here's a thesis statement, and I'm just continuing to go with the fruits of the spirit for your illustration assignment. So I'm talking about patience, I decided, in this thesis statement. So patience is a good fruit of the spirit to have. Well, I mean, this thesis statement is okay. It gets me started, but what's missing here? Well, I have my subject. I'm talking about patience. I have my attitude. My attitude or my belief about it is that it's a good thing to have. But where am I really going with this? Well, this thesis doesn't tell me or anyone else the direction that I'm taking with patience. There's still so much here that I could say. I could write a 15-page paper about everything that I can think of about patience, or maybe I can't think of very much and I struggle to type out 2 pages just because I don't have a focus and a direction that I'm going in, and I get frustrated and I give up. So let's see if we can add that direction into some thesis statements. So I thought about it a little bit more, played around with some ideas, and came up with patience is an important fruit of the spirit that can be developed, I can't read backwards, by waiting on God, others, and ourselves. Okay, so this gives my thesis, one thing it does is give it a really good direction. I'm talking about how to develop patience, and then I give 3 specific ways that that's developed. Waiting on God, so there's my first paragraph, or if I'm writing a longer paper, I might have 2 or 3 paragraphs about that. Then I'm going to talk about how waiting on others develops patience. There's my second subject or second support that I need to develop, and it's right there in my thesis statement guiding me to where I'm going. So that's paragraph number 2. And then on ourselves, paragraph number 3. Again, I've given myself a very specific point in this thesis statement to go back to, focus on, and say, okay, that's my next step to telling people about my point in this paper, which is how to develop patience. Okay, just to give you another example, here's one that goes a little bit different direction. Patience is a good fruit to develop because it helps us to be gentle in our actions, thoughts, and words. So there's that one. So this one takes a little bit different direction. Instead of talking about how to develop patience, it's talking about when I develop patience or when I have patience, what are the benefits of having patience? And again, I have those 3 specific things outlined in my thesis to keep me on track. How it helps us to be gentle in actions, paragraph 1, thoughts, paragraph 2, words, paragraph 3, and then I can use my graphic organizer to develop that out and generate ideas about each one of these topics. And then it states this on the lectures, but I'm just going to reiterate for the purposes of this class, because you're beginning writers, you need to put your thesis statement at the end of or somewhere in the first few sentences of your paper. There are writers who are more developed that sometimes they'll, and in longer essays, sometimes people will spend a lot more time giving background, and so the thesis statement won't appear until later in the paper, but we're not doing that. We're going to put our thesis statement at the beginning so that we stay focused and we can see where the paper is going as we develop as writers. Okay, another thing that we talked about that was mentioned this week is using descriptive language. So there's 2 things that I'm going to talk to you about this week. We'll get more into similes and metaphors later. I feel like that's a little bit more advanced, and I don't want you guys to spend a ton of time trying to figure out a simile and a metaphor, but you can go back through your writing and figure out where you can add some interest and some action in your writing to make it more interesting by looking at 2 simple things. And those 2 simple things are adjectives is number 1. So adjectives are just descriptive words, and they invoke the 5 senses. So I've given you a few examples of adjectives here: soft, large, spicy, angry, lumpy. Those are all things that describe how something feels, tastes. I didn't really have a smell in here, but you could describe how something smells sweet or stinky. Just anything that will help your reader experience what you're talking about through the 5 senses. And don't overuse adjectives. Like, you don't need 3 adjectives for one word. Just sprinkle them in here and there. Okay, and then the other thing is verbs. So the most important thing to know about verbs is they express the action, and there's what's called active voice or passive voice. You want to use the active voice. So here's an example that I'm going to show you about how using the active voice really enlivens your writing. So a home run was hit in the 5th inning. Well, that kind of tells you what happens, but it's not very interesting. And this sentence is in the passive voice because it doesn't have someone who's doing the action. So we don't know who's doing the action. We don't really have a good picture in our head of what's going on. We just know that a home run was hit somewhere. So using the active voice and some descriptive language, some strong verbs, in the 5th inning, Jane smacked the ball over the fence for a home run. So that is a much better, more active sentence. And now we have a better picture of what happened. We know that the hitter was Jane. We know that it was a really hard hit, that it went over the fence, and she got a home run. So this sentence really isn't that many more words in this sentence, but it gives us such a better picture of what is going on. So when you go back for your final draft and you proofread and you edit, look for places where you can make your writing stronger through using adjectives, active voice, and really descriptive, active verbs that will enliven your writing. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about as far as information that was given in this lecture is proofs. And there is a sheet. Let me find it on here so I can tell you what it's called. Definitely read it. It is writing effect under the Writing Effectively tab. It's called Persuading Effectively. And it just gives you several different pieces of information in there, and one of the sections in that document is about proofs. So I'm just going to go over that really quickly for now. Later on in the semester, we'll continue to talk about this and get more into it, because these are going to be very important when you get to your argumentative essay, and you'll want to use all of these in your papers eventually. So proofs. So the first type of proof, there's 3 types. The first one's logical. It's pretty much what you would think. It's factual. So, statistics or just events in history that happened, dates, scientific studies, things like that. All of those can be logical proofs that you can use. Another type of proof is ethical. That's basically just right versus wrong. So what is the right thing to do in the situation? What is the wrong thing to do in the situation? And then the last type of proof is emotional or feelings, and those are okay too. In academic writing, you don't want to make logical proofs your main proof that you use for your essay, especially for argument, but they can be really good to supplement and back up what you're saying from a factual and ethical basis. So it's good to know those and to use those. So a really good example of something that uses logical, ethical, and emotional proof all together to do a really good thing is Compassion International. Some of you guys may even have a Compassion child, but if you've ever seen any of their literature, they're really good about giving you some facts, something like, they'll just have some type of statistic, and I'm just making this up for purposes of example, but, they might say something like 55% of people in this certain country don't have access to clean water. And then, later in the article, they might say, we're compelled to drill these wells in this country because we believe that Jesus has called us to make sure that people have clean water. So that would be an ethical appeal, and then, or an ethical proof. And then they might end the article with a story that says something like, Anna and her mother now have access to clean drinking water every day because you gave us money and you supported this country or this child or whatever. So they put that all together to make a really nice argument for why you should support their organization. So that's just an example of a real life example of someone out there using all these proofs and combining them very well. Now, all of these proofs can be misused. They can be twisted, and there are people out there all the time who are using these types of proof to make arguments that aren't correct, to mislead people. There's all kinds of fallacies that you can get into, and we'll talk about those later so that you can avoid those and use these types of proofs to make a really good, sound argument. Okay, and then, the last thing that I wanted to say is that looking over the papers that you all turned in for the first session, I just want to remind you to proofread. There were a lot of typos and different things that just told me that a lack of proofreading was going on. So just go back through your paper and read it again. Give it one more look before you turn it in. Even if it's just your rough draft, go ahead and look back through it and see if you can catch some things before I look at it. And one of the ways that I like to proofread my own papers, because a lot of times that's hard to do because we know what we were trying to say, and so we'll miss things because our brain just fills that in because we know what we meant. So a great way to proofread is to just go back and read your paper out loud to yourself. And you may feel kind of funny, it may seem weird to do that, but you will catch a lot more stuff if you read it out loud, because then you're actually hearing what you said, and then your brain can say, oh, that doesn't, what I just heard doesn't make sense, and you can go back and you can edit that. So I think that's everything for session 3. Again, please don't hesitate to email or contact me if you have any questions, and I look forward to reading your rough drafts for your illustration essay.